What's up, everyone? I'm Undrea King.
And I'm Andy Speed.
And welcome to the Wholesale Nation Podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, this is the podcast that we let you know everything you need to do and learn about wholesaling. Also, we are the owners of Drayco Properties. So if you have a property that you're looking to move, hit us up at offers@draycoproperties.com. And also another thing, we do need your help. If you hadn't had a chance to, don't forget to hit the like button, to subscribe, and also don't forget to leave us a review. With that said, let's go ahead and get this party started. Andy, what's been going on with you?
I think the thing that's most exciting is we add another 4 units to the portfolio.
Cha-ching.
Yes, lovely. Made a pretty decent buy. ARV's 450. We got in all in with owner financing at 300, so it's a pretty solid deal. Mm-hmm. If you market enough, those deals are out there.
Right.
Let's see. So it's 4 units on the water in Port Isabel. I think I've maybe mentioned it before on the podcast, but it's a fourplex on the bay. You know, we've got on the channel right there across from Padre. Let's see, we've got 4 boat slips. And what I'm most excited about is we're keeping one of the units as an Airbnb.
Nice.
So we're not going full into the entertainment business. This is not a new business model, but this is at least a dream of mine and Eric's, our third partner on this, that we have, a little vacation getaway.
Right.
Not so much yours. You're more the hotel guy.
Yeah.
But
I'm a hotel guy, but I think mine's more on the other end is, I talked about it on one of our, I guess on our group, or when I sent out the message about it, is sometimes you got to keep some of the stuff that you're selling, right? And I hear a lot of like people who wholesale like 10, 15 years ago, and they're like, man, if I was just kept more.
If I would have just held on to it, right?
Yeah. And so this is one of those things. That's what I'm most excited about, is that just something that we held on to, and we let it grow and build equity and let it cash flow and all that good stuff. Let y'all do the Airbnb thing.
So new topic.
Yeah.
Have you, our first rental that we bought together, Royal Chase. How many times have you thought about or worked or talked about that property? Done anything with it?
Done anything with it?
How many hours would you say? We've owned it probably 3 years.
I hadn't done anything in probably, if we've had it for 3 years, then I hadn't done anything in two and a half plus years, besides look at the statement coming in.
So don't want to be deceiving. We do have our property manager. Right. It's a newer asset, so you're not getting a lot of those calls. Like I deal with our others quite often. Yeah. But Royal Chase is one that I haven't had to spend any time thinking about hardly at all. Maybe 2 hours in the last 3 years. Right. And that's nothing. Mm-hmm. We bought that thing. I think we were all in at 118. It's worth 155 now. Right. It was worth 135 then, and $20K in appreciation. We really haven't done anything with it. Yeah.
And we bought it sub too also.
Which
is another thing. Right.
Yes, we weren't out of pocket. Yeah. 118. We were out of pocket
like $8,000 or something on the rehab, and another.
I think the rehab was 7, but so call it 8. Yeah. I think we did end up having to fix the washer and dryer right after, so it might have been 8.
And closing, and that was it.
Yeah. So not a bad deal. So figure out how to hang on to these things, guys. Yeah. It's not. It is a process, but keep at it, and you'll get there. Yeah.
And far as and onto that one. How we got that one, because people ask like, so how'd you find it? Were you texting, things like that? So that one came from just your old school mailer,
pink postcard,
just a pink postcard. So do postcards work? Yes. Do direct mail work? Yes. So we sent out a postcard to the seller. Andy negotiated this thing, but actually had this one is another creative deal, so that's what I like about it.
I love the creative space.
Yeah, I mean, and that was excellent, right? And, hopefully we'll be looking for more. So, again, if you run into anything that's multifamily, we're looking for, 100 units or less.
We'll buy more than 100 units, but as far as our marketing goes, it's been 100 less.
Yeah. So if you run across anything like that, don't forget to send it to us. You can send it off to me at just on Facebook, or you can hit us up at offers@draycoproperties.com. And then here, with me, as we talk about marketing, we've of course we talked before. We've expanded the entire state of Texas, moved into Ohio a few months ago. And so now starting to see some positive traction there, starting to see the disposition team starting to learn, how to move properties a lot quicker. I'm starting to see that not only the cities, but the states are starting to feel a lot smaller. to them. So they're starting to think in regions. I'm actually going to get them a big calendar. So, I mean, not a big calendar, but a big map so we can start pinpointing some of the places that we've been. But yeah, that, you know, it took a little while for them to get used to the process, but I'm starting to see it now. We're starting to see the assignments start rolling through. So excited about that. And now, you know, we're rolling into, 3 additional markets here as of a few days ago. So excited about that as well. All right.
So you touched on something that is not a lot of people talk about it. Knowing the market is so incredibly important to your success.
Right.
You know, because there are little tidbits about markets where that you just don't know and you can't know until you start marketing there.
Yeah.
And it is a learning curve. And, you know, I'm glad to see that we're starting to learn some of what it takes to get the right price in some of these areas. I mean, we have had some fallout, and quite honestly, it's been less than the industry standard.
Yeah.
Right. We were at 38%. The industry standard is 50%. So we're not doing bad, but we need to better understand what we're leaving on the table.
Yeah.
In doing so. Some of the stuff we just missed it so far off. We're at 50 grand, and turns out the value is like $7,000.
Yeah.
But you couldn't have known that the neighborhood is just like everybody's mass exodus.
Yeah.
And nobody's buying there except for, you know, the guys that are buying vacant houses in Detroit types, you know, you couldn't know that.
Yeah,
right?
you got to have that. You look at you take a Texas eye there, right? And you look at this like, man, this would be a deal all day long in Texas, but there it's just their standard property, right?
Right.
So that's not a deal because they can get that deal all day long, so you can't even call it a deal. And so it was getting used to those type of things, when we first got started. But now I think the team is starting to get better at analyzing it. Also, the disposition team I think is definitely picked up on just following the process, right? Go through it, make the phone calls, do what we need to do. I think we had a show on, how we dispositions. If not, then, of course, we've revamped it a little bit.
We need to do that. We need to do that again. And I think the coolest thing about it is and maybe the hardest thing to adjust to is our disposition team has had to adjust to failure.
Yeah.
It's a different mindset. It's like our acquisition team expects a lot of no's to a yes.
Right.
Our dispo has never been the hunter. Mm-mm. And it's not that we feed our acquisition leads. They're not actually hunting for their own leads, but they are hunting through the leads to find the best one.
Yeah.
Our dispo has never done that. Mm-hmm. And so now there was an adjustment. There was a learning curve there. And I agree with you. We are moving a lot quicker, more efficiently, and having better conversations with potential buyers and those that represent buyers. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. And that's something I think we've talked about for like 2-3 years, having a disposition team that can actually go find a higher buyer, versus us just get a property and then send an email and then, if we sell it, we can. If we can't, we can't. Right.
Right.
So we've definitely seen some upside there. All right. Which kind of brings us to our topic today. We get this question a lot is, because we're wholesaling virtually, how do you assess repairs when you're wholesaling virtually, right? Which is a common question because you don't get to lay eyes on the property. You can lay eyes on it, but you can't walk in. And I know you always talk about, Andy, being able to smell the property and all of that. So that's going to be our topic for today.
Right.
Okay.
So this industry has shifted. So we were, the old school model, work your market, and now it's opened up to virtual. You can be a lot more efficient. There are a lot of pros to going virtual, and I'm definitely an advocate of it.
Yeah.
I can't speak for someone that has never walked a house.
Yeah.
We spent, 3.5 years walking houses and not actually going virtual and trusting what the seller said. So I do have that experience of, doing flips, doing rehabs, losing money, uncovering the true costs. And for me, I didn't accurately assess how much it cost to fix a fence. And it took me forever. I would just add that in as just one of those smaller items. Like if a window was broken, I'm not going to really add to the budget for a $200 window. It's $200. It's not a budget breaker.
Right.
But when you're replacing 120 linear feet of fence at $12 to $15 a foot, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it doesn't kill the deal, but it absolutely dampers your profit margin. Mm-hmm. So not having that experience and then going to buying over the phone, there's a whole long list of unknowns that you don't know about if you've never walked a house.
Right.
So it's absolutely, I think the biggest thing to it is it's intimidating. Like the mindset, it's incredibly intimidating to switch or to just go and assess repairs virtually.
Yeah. And I would say that we tried, we actually, I think I took it from Sean Terry. He had, back in the day when I first got started, he had a repair sheet. And so what we tried to do in the Houston market, because like Andy said, from going and doing flips where you actually need to be right. You want to be right as a wholesaler also, but you definitely want to be right because you're getting ready to buy it. But when we were doing going to appointments, we tried to make it simple by putting together a repair sheet. And we still have that repair sheet, and you have to adjust it to your market. That should be on our Facebook group.
It is.
Just go to Wholesale Nation. But we tried to keep it nice and simple, a way that you can check and then add your price. Check and add your price. So if you could see, then you can put together your repair numbers, right? But that did cause you to have to go to an appointment to make it happen.
Right.
Okay. Now we've taken that same process and we try to put it over to virtual wholesaling as well. Cause I was like, okay, how we're going to do this, because we're not seeing it. It's going to be hard as hell to like have the seller, should we have the seller walk through the house, get a camera out, and we're ticking like we're there? That wasn't going to be the easiest way to do it. Okay.
Yep.
So we had to change that process. Okay. You had something on that?
Yeah, I do. And there's really, it's different, right? It's not necessarily a checklist, but you need to understand the relationships between square footage and cost of repairing.
Right.
So just to I'll just tell you the rules. As if a house is, say, 1,000 square feet, the dollars per square foot to fix that house is naturally going to be higher than, say, a 3,000 square foot house. Why? Because you still have the most expensive stuff to repair in a 1,000 square foot house and less square footage to offset your cost versus, a 3,000 square foot house. $20 a square foot in a 3,000 square foot house goes a lot further than $20 a square foot in a 1,000 square foot house. And that's because the kitchens and baths, right? So in a 1,000 square foot house, you may only have one bathroom, but you still have a kitchen. Yeah. And your kitchen is, your biggest ticket item in a house. It really is, unless you're doing some of the large ticket items, which is foundation, roof, plumbing, and AC. So what we've done to make it simple for our team is we set the square footage to the side at first, and we go off the $10, $20, $30, and $40 square foot rehab. Right. And then you add in the large ticket items outside of that. So to give you an example, a basic update on a newer house. So we're doing paint, we're doing flooring, and we're doing some miscellaneous repairs. Say this house is like 5 or 10 years old. You're going to pay $10 a square foot. Right. You could have the house like ours where Undrea said that we paid $8,000, which was $4 a square foot. No, it's actually a smaller house. It's 1,500 square feet. Yeah. We paid $8,000. So what is that? I don't even know. Yeah. But that was just flooring, paint, and some miscellaneous repairs. So there was a little mold spot. There was pressure washing the outside. There was replacing a little bit of hardware. There was a threshold with the doors, just nitpicky little, maintenance items. Yeah. And it was a 2000, I think it's built in 2009, 2005, something like that. Yeah. But a single owner, she had grandkids that live with her. They tore up the carpet. They painted on the walls. But I mean, that's all stuff that's pretty easy. Right. A $20 square foot is a basic update. So if you are getting in and you're replacing countertops, you're maybe doing the backsplash, you're replacing appliances, there's some landscaping, those things, that's about $20 a square foot. $30 a square foot, we're going into, most likely it's a $20 square foot house that's smaller. So in my mind, because it jumps up to 40 pretty quick. Yeah. But if the house is in real serious disrepair, not serious disrepair, but I'd say a hoarder lived there, or it's been 40 years since they've updated it, but they maintained it. You're looking at more of $30 square foot rehab. And all of these things would adjust up and down based on the size. Right. $40 a square foot is a pretty rough house. Yeah. The only ones that really go above 40 square feet and somebody's going to blow up and say, no, I have an exception to that rule. There are exceptions to this rule, guys. This is not like uniformed every scenario. Yeah. But it's hard to get above $40 a square foot in a, say, $2,500 square foot house. Right. Or 2,500 square foot house. Smaller houses, $1,000 or 1,000 square foot house, it's pretty easy to get up to 50 and 60. If that house is in disrepair, like water's been coming in through the roof for a number of years, there's not a lot of square footage to offset your dollars per square foot. Correct. So it might be a $50,000 or $60,000 rehab, but that's a complete remodel of a 1,000 square foot house. Yeah. Yeah.
And, we'll talk about how do you get that information out. But what we did, and you can adjust it however you want to do it in your system, but I needed something that I wanted to be visual for our acquisitions when they're talking to people. So that first one that Andy talked about, we call that the lipstick. Right. That's just your, you need to get in there and get it nice and pretty again. Right. So you may have to do some floors, you have to do some paint, but that's your newer house. Then we get into our cosmetic house, and, that's your, for me, that's grandma. That's grandma's house that's in very good condition, right? Grandma took good care of that house. You're probably going to be somewhere around $20 a square foot. It's a little outdated, but you go ahead and get it fixed up. And then we get into, I call it grandma rode the house kind of hard.
Yep.
Right. And I have it in a system like that.
Yep.
Right. So that one's at 30. So it gives them a visual. And then we got the one where grandma died 10 years ago and the house just been sitting there. Right. And you can imagine what that house is going to look like. No one's been tending to it. But what I did was I wanted them to have some type of visual. So when they're talking to them, they can start getting an idea of what does this house look like? Is it paneling in there? And, if your area's paneling is not a good thing, right, then that's okay.
Well, yeah. And your comps dictate everything.
Yeah. Because when you go into other markets, you're going to start seeing in Houston, for example, most of the houses that we would wholesale, I would say, are going to be houses that are younger than they're going to be at least in the 1970s,
Yeah, we don't have 150-year-old houses here.
Yeah, and then when you get into places like Ohio, it's a custom that you're going to run into 1898, 1901. So then your repairs and things are going to be a little bit different. And also you have basements and things like that, so you have to adjust. So adjust it so that it can work with where you're at,
right.
But just make sure that you have something visual, so when you're talking to them, you can start getting an idea of what their repair is going to be.
Well, and quite honestly, in Houston, to support your point, labor's cheaper here.
Yeah,
labor is absolutely cheaper here. Cost of living is cheaper. Maybe not compared to Ohio.
Yeah, it depends on what part of Ohio.
Yeah, labor may still be cheaper, but if it's right after Hurricane Harvey, labor's a little bit more expensive because you're in competition with about 200,000 other people that just got their houses flooded.
Right.
So contractors, supply and demand. I mean, there's less contractors do come here for that type of stuff, but you're still hard pressed to find good contractors after a flood.
Right.
Add a little bit to your rehab because it's going to take more time to get it done regardless. Even if it doesn't cost you more money, it's going to cost you more money and time.
Right.
Or your investor.
Yeah. So the next thing, because I know you work with the sales team working on, you're actually going to be doing your role playing here pretty soon. So what the numbers are, right? So you put together your categories. Let's say you put it 10, 20, 30, 40, right? How do you have the conversation with the seller to be able to get to that price?
Okay. So I want to answer that, but before we get there, I rarely go over $30 a square foot in just the dollars per square foot range. Right. And then I add in any oddball ticket items: foundation, roof, plumbing, AC. If there's any major issues, say like there's what does Rashad do? The septic. Like say the septic's bad, or if it's been vacant for 5 years and it's on a septic, then I know that the septic's going to at a minimum need maintenance.
Right.
So I'm going to add $5,000 to $7,000 for that septic tank, banking on it being replaced. Or I'm going to try to get to. Now, to answer your question about, getting it over the phone and asking the seller, I'm going to be as open and vague as possible because I do care about the house, but I care more about the seller. So it's a little tricky. You're playing games. Obviously, you don't want them to know that you're playing games, but right. I'm asking about the house, but I really want to hear his motivation.
Yeah.
So I'm asking these questions about the house. I'm asking him maybe to give me a virtual tour. If you were going to spend $5,000, where would you fix it? I'm asking questions like that.
Now, so I like where you're going there. So are you asking those questions because you really want to get the repairs, or are you asking those questions because you're on the rapport side? Is it both?
I'm going to get the repairs eventually. I want the rapport.
Yeah.
So all the way through the call, if you are buying over the phone, the most important piece is rapport. Yeah. And buying in person as well, but it's a little bit harder to get that rapport over the phone.
Yeah. So that's your golden nugget right there from Andy Speed. Regardless of what we're trying to do, regardless of, whether you're trying to get the repairs, I hear it all the time. You probably hear it as well, is that people get too technical over the phone and they get into almost like a telemarketer or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And they lose the person, and it doesn't matter what the repairs are because you lose the deal.
Yeah. Well, when you start going into Q&A about the house, it gets a little repetitive. I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about in the repairs in a house.
Right.
But if you can get a very high level understanding of the condition of the property, you can make a lot of assumptions. And then you can ask them to help you understand specifics.
Yeah.
I'm going to start in 9 times out of 10, and there are exceptions to this to this direction in the call, but I'm going to ask them a very vague question about the condition. So can you tell me a little bit about the property?
Yeah, and then they start talking.
Yeah, and hopefully they do. Well, what would you like to know?
Yeah, what would you like to know?
And then I'm still vague again. Like, give me the virtual tour. Let's picture as if I'm actually there. Walk me through the house and kind of tell me what I can expect to see. And and I'm looking for things that they say like it hasn't been updated in 20 years. Well, how was it taken care of? What's happened in the last few years? Has it been vacant? Because houses, believe it or not, are alive. And they'd like people to live in them.
Right.
Vacant houses, if you've been in the business a while, you can see it. When a house goes vacant, it just starts to degrade so much faster than if somebody was living there.
Yeah.
And it may be because the utilities aren't turned on. It may be because little minor damage from storms, et cetera, doesn't get replaced, and the wood starts rotting, and then it becomes a bigger issue. But it is a known fact that living in a house keeps it from having damage.
Yeah.
So... And it's tough to do over the phone, and I understand why people would struggle with that, but you really just need to stay vague and ask them questions and then fit it into that $10, $20, $30, $40 range based on the square footage. And then let's look for big ticket items. Yeah. The whole time you're really looking for pain.
Yeah. And that's what I the biggest thing I take from that is that your whole conversation, just like if you were going to an appointment, and face to face, the whole conversation that you're having with the person is really to build rapport. So you're saying, take me on a tour of the property virtually, but you're really just trying to find why we're on the phone and how can I help you?
Oh, I'm looking for any opportunity to distract them.
Yeah. How can I help you as the person is what you're really thinking as the seller. Like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to figure out first. And then once you figure out that, okay, this is the type of home, they fit the mold. Right. The person has got to have something going on. The house has got to be damaged. You got to have, some type of circumstance, and, whether it's a probate, divorce, they got to have some type of distress going on. That's what you're trying to see.
Or convenience. It could be just a convenience. It doesn't have to be, the sky is falling for this person.
It doesn't have to be that. But what you're trying to do is discover, why are we talking?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
100%. Right. And that's really what matters, not the repair. Yeah. So in summary, I'm sorry.
You don't really have to have that. Yeah,
you don't.
Because that conversation is quick, right? Because, okay, great. Sounds like this would be a good fit. Whether you're saying it to them or saying them in your brain, I can help this person. Now let's see if the house fits, right?
Yeah, I'm looking for something to solve.
Yeah.
I do care about the repairs, but if I'm close, then I'm going to build in margin for our fee. And if I'm off by $5,000, then we make $10,000 instead of 15.
Right.
The plan is like we base everything off a $15,000 return.
Right.
And if we're off by $5,000, we're off by $5,000. But I think the important piece is for them to help you understand the condition, and then really help. You're really asking how can I help you? Like what are we trying to solve here? Why are we talking?
Yeah.
And if you can figure that out, then you can solve their problem and you can buy the house.
Yeah. And then, from there, the rest of the conversation is very quick because you can quickly get the information about the house, especially if you have, like I said, if you have a visual already kind of lined up, you can quickly ask the question, well, they've had this house, they moved in 2011, it was fully updated. All right. You can start, did anything happen, roof? And then you're already at, okay, I'm somewhere around 10. Yep. All right. It's been an older house. So you can ask those questions like it hadn't been updated and, the person who lived here hadn't been here in 10 years.
Right.
Bam. That's really all you need to know at that point. Right?
So we're, if nobody's lived there, it's been 10 years. If the house is in complete disrepair, then I'm maybe going $40 a square foot. Yeah. If not, it's going to be 30.
Yeah. But if you bought it off of 40,
you can't.
You're winning, right?
Yeah, right. Well, if it's a 1,000 square foot house, it might be 50 or 60.
Right.
But keep that in mind. I mean, that's really the most important piece when you're going the dollars per square foot is as you go up in square footage, the cost per square footage is naturally pulled down. And it's really as you go down in square footage, it goes up. Yeah. But if you're still nervous about the repairs, let's assume that you're the seller and we've had a 10-minute conversation where you've told me enough for me to know that it's a $20 a square foot rehab. It may just be as simple as asking for me to ask you, help me understand if there's anything that maybe we haven't talked about that may be expensive. Your seller, they ought to be able to come up with something.
Yeah.
You know, is there anything that maybe we haven't discussed that might hit the budget pretty hard? You know,
by the way, it has a hole in the roof because a tree fell through it.
Yeah. Or, I mean, the landscaping has gone out of control. You know, you can even give them some examples. Like how much am I spending on landscaping? How much am I spending on the fence? Like is the fence good?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what it's like in most of the places in the nation that I've been, they have wood plank fences, most. And it's incredibly expensive to repair a fence. Yeah. You know, if you're paying somebody to do it, the materials really isn't that much, but it's when you're paying somebody to do it, man, it gets expensive, at least here.
It adds up very quickly.
So, I mean, you can ask those types of questions, but again, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, what we found is that when you go to an appointment, and we discussed this earlier, going to appointments and you get it wrong, which if you're new,
you're going to get it wrong.
Experience, sometimes you're going to get it wrong.
Undrea, you and I have been $40,000 wrong.
Right. We've been wrong. So you're going to get it wrong. Be ready to get it wrong. Don't think that you're ever going to be this, and don't try to be master repair guy estimator. Right.
Yeah. Don't get kind of details.
Yeah. Because I hear it. I just saw someone send a message like, you know, do I need to get a contractor to give me a bid so I can get the price right? And things like, well, by the time you do that, you won't even have the property because they done sold it to someone else. Right.
And, you know, I can't tell you how many times my contractor's been wrong.
Yeah. And the contractor's wrong. And this contractor versus this contractor.
Yeah. And you don't know if they're trying to bid low to get the job and then they're going to upsell you on change orders. You don't, you really don't know.
So don't worry about that because like I was saying, when we used to go to appointments, you can go there and you'd be wrong, right? And a lot of times that when you go and try to renegotiate, the first thing the seller would say is, well, hell, you came to the house.
Yeah, you looked at it.
Yeah. Then you got to say, well, you know, I was kind of a salesperson and, you know, I had my actual guy go out. Why the hell didn't you have that guy come the first time?
Right. I didn't want to piss that guy off. By the way, don't go ask a contractor to go with you on an appointment.
Yeah, don't do that. That's just going to waste time. It's going
to waste their time.
That's fear. I had that also.
You're going to piss somebody off.
First, because here I wanted Fast Track to go with me because they were the thing here in Houston. And then I tried to get someone else, and you're just wasting time. And what it is it's a fear that you have that you're going to make a mistake. Guess what? You're going to make a mistake, right? You learn from it. You move on. Right?
Well, on repairs, if you can get within 10%, you're good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great estimate. If you're within 10%, the thing is you don't want to miss the big ticket items. The big ticket items are foundation, roof, plumbing, AC. Yeah. Those things will break your budget. Yeah. And then also septic. Yeah. You know, well and septic is, I don't know, I've never had to deal with a well. I've owned properties with wells. I've never had to fix a well or maintain a well. I've never done anything with a well.
Right. I feel like we've had one. We
did. I don't remember which one. I don't remember. It was down southwest. Yeah. Needville. Yeah. But anyways, never had to deal with it. I still don't know the expenses to screw with a well. Yeah. But the beautiful thing is you can ask the seller.
Yeah. And the other thing I like about virtual is we make our offers right over the phone before we get off the phone with the seller, based on what the seller is telling us, right? We send the contract, we get the contract. All right. So now, because what we found before we went virtual is that we were losing deals because we weren't on a contract. We were taking all this time to go look at the property. And by the time we got there, someone had it on the contract. But we're basing it on what the seller is telling us. And we have the seller send us pictures of the property, or we hire somebody to get the pictures. Once those pictures comes in, then we can have a chance to renegotiate, right? If we need to. If we look at the pictures and they don't,
it's a chance to validate what the seller, or what we believed we were buying.
Right. So if it didn't line up from what you're saying.
Translation: opportunity to renegotiate.
Opportunity to renegotiate. Everybody that's on here is trying to virtual wholesale, so we're going to keep it 100. At the end of the day, if you're not right, if and it should be like if what you thought in your mind doesn't match the pictures, you got to get on the phone with the seller and let them know, hey, this is what you said, and you got to renegotiate.
Well, a great example of that, even if you did get the repairs correct, Frankenstein. Yeah. The Frankenstein house. The house from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, the pyramid beam house that's been added on 4 and 5 times where you have to walk through a bathroom to get to a bedroom.
The house was 800 square foot, and now it's 3,000 square foot, and they have a makeshift elevator.
That's a specific house that we did.
Yeah. So I thought that was the one you were talking about.
No, but I mean, I've been through a number of bathrooms to get to a bedroom, and it's not that house is not worth the 3,000 square foot comps. It's not a 3,000 square foot house. Yeah. It's a 1,200 square foot house that they did some wonky stuff to it. Mm-hmm. I had a wholesaler the other day send me a trailer that they connected to a structure. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
That before.
No. This one was different. The trailer was on top of it. The trailer was the second story in the one that I went.
Yeah.
And that was a missed buy on our behalf. They sold it for double what I offered her. And I had it ready to sign. I was pissed. Anyways, this one was connected to.
We weren't buying over the phone at the time.
That's true. The person who bought it was over the phone.
Over the phone.
That's true.
Yep.
Chris Funk, you're an asshole. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. A friend of ours bought it.
Yeah.
But anyways, kudos to him. I'm actually going to be on the phone with him today. He's going to be helping me with some multifamily stuff.
There you go.
But no, it is an opportunity to not only be dumb or be ignorant. You actually are.
Right.
Right. So you could have somebody, if you're incredibly uncomfortable or you've got the feedback from your buyers.
That's the last part. So if you go back and once you've approved the pictures and you're still, you may think that you're right, but then especially if you're in a market that you're not aware of and don't know much about, the buyers will come in and start. Now, some buyers are going to BS you, right? But the buyers by the time you get like 5 or so offers and people are telling you the same thing, now you'll know, okay, wait a minute, I am still off on this. If you have to renegotiate, you can go back and tell them exactly what your buyers are saying at that point. And you'll probably be right at that point because anyone that's going to buy that house is going to run into the same issue as those 5 or 6 people have told you.
Right.
Okay? And you can go back and get it right.
So yeah, I mean, most buyers will tell you, hey, you said this was about 20K in repairs. I'm coming in about 40 or 30 or whatever it may be. Yeah. You will get some good feedback there because at least in this market, I mean like 2020 when stuff's still moving off the shelves in most areas. Yeah. They're in competition to buy your deal. Mm-hmm. So they will BS you. They will try to get a deal. Everybody wants a deal. Yeah. And quite honestly, we're in the business of selling deals. Yeah. It still needs to be a deal when we sell it. So there is a lot of motivation by the buyers in most markets, I will say in most markets, to put their best foot forward. Yeah. And, whenever I buy from a wholesaler, I am putting my best foot forward because I want the deal. If it's an opportunity for me to make money, if it's 20 grand or if it's 22 grand, it doesn't really make a difference. Right. So I'm going to put my best foot forward and see if I can get the deal. Yeah.
And ask that buyer, like if that buyer gives you an offer, right? They come in and they're 20,000 below where you need to be. Find out why. Ask them, I appreciate you for giving me that offer, but if you don't mind me asking, how did you get to 40 or how did you get to that number? And get specifics so you can use that if you need to go back to the seller.
Because, there's somebody listening right now that's like, damn it, I got to learn by doing. Yes. Oh, I got to make mistakes.
You have to do it, right? So reading principles right now, and that's a part of, he talks about goal setting, right? You go, you find a problem, then you diagnose the problem, then you come up with a plan, right? So you come up with a plan to be able to get around that problem, and then you go and do, and you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. You keep spiraling up.
I'm excited to hear that you picked principles back up. Yeah. You set it down.
Yeah. Well, I read like 4 books and then I
know you set it down because you hit your quota.
Yeah. But now I'm back on
your goal. You cheated. This guy cheated to get his goal. Hey, he's over here reading comic books.
I have a goal. I hit a problem. I diagnosed the problem. I came up with a plan to be able to fix the problem, and I'm doing.
But I actually started listening to Principles. Yeah. And I've been listening to it for the last couple of weeks. It's a long damn book.
It's a long book, but I would say it's been one of the best, longest books.
It absolutely is.
It's packed full of information. I mean, anytime you can learn from a billionaire that came from nothing, you might want to read it and see what they're talking about.
A couple of times over too.
Because it's packed full of, from life and work principles. So spend some time on that one. If you hadn't had a chance, it is a big book. If you got to listen to it. Don't make a difference.
Dude, I think every book I've read this year, there's a few exceptions. Almost every book I've read this year has got me hooked in the first half, and the second half has been like pulling teeth. Yeah, I've got like 4 books that I just put down with like 100 pages left because I just couldn't take it anymore. Right. Others that most of them I ended up finishing on Audible, just listening to it because it was. Oh man, David and Goliath, Malcolm Gladwell hurt my heart a little bit, man. I've read 3, and 2 of the 3 it was just like pulling teeth towards the end. I'm like, man, when is this going to end? Mm-hmm. But anyways, we digress.
Yes, what you're reading. That's really the main thing. So you're learning. But guys, I know we went a little longer than we were expecting to go on this one. But the moral of the story, I think Andy said this was almost like a trick podcast. We talked about, how do you assess your values and everything over the phone. At the end of the day, it's still about the seller. It's still about building rapport, getting to know the seller, finding out if they have a problem, seeing if you can solve that problem. And then, by the way, tell me about the house. It's basically what it boils down to. And that part should be small.
It's also beautiful that you haven't seen the house. Yeah. So if you do say that the roof needs to be replaced, any of the big ticket items or anything for that matter, odds are maybe they've got a quote or maybe they have an idea how much it's going to be to fix it. And maybe that idea is wrong, but I can tell you, I can get a roof done cheaper than any roofer that I found that advertises any. So if your seller picks up the phone and calls a roofer, they're going to get almost twice the cost that we get.
Right.
Because our guys aren't in the yellow pages. Yeah. They're not in the Angie's list. They're not in any advertisements whatsoever. Yeah. They can do their stuff cheaper because they're just word of mouth, repetition, repeat business, right?
Right.
So if your seller says it's $12,000 to replace the roof, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've just built in some margin of error.
Yeah.
So if the fence does need to be replaced, and the reality is it's going to be offset by stuff you missed. If you're doing a lipstick rehab where you're just doing, the fixtures, paint, like the standard stuff that you're going to do in every house, you can do that very easily on the dollars per square foot.
Yeah.
But then you add in the big ticket items using their price, you're definitely going to be good. Yeah. If you missed it, you're going to have to spend $3,000 or $4,000 on landscaping, which sounds like a lot, but I've done it.
Yeah.
I think we actually do just mowing your yard. If you own a property for 6 months, at least here in Houston in the summer months, you're mowing it every week.
Right.
That adds up. Yeah. Like that's one of the budget breakers on our 40K property because we owned it for a year and it was like an acre. It cost us $70 every time we mowed it.
Plus taxes.
Yeah. Plus the taxes ate us up too. But
$200,000 house.
And we were off on the rehab by
a really good school district
by $7,000.
Yeah.
Which was pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. And guess what? We walked the house.
We went to the house. Well, what it was is we changed our rehab. We went from thinking that we were going to do just the bare minimum because this thing is in a good area. It's a huge lot. There's tear downs. This house doesn't need to be tore down.
Right. That's a topic for another story. When to hotel and when to let it go.
I think the best advice from that and not related to the topic, but something that Undrea always says. Do you know what I'm saying?
Don't try to flip your way out of a bad wholesale.
Yes, those are very wise words from Undrea, and he says it quite often. Anytime we try to convince ourselves to do a deal just to make it work, it's a bad idea. Yeah. Do not flip your way out of a bad wholesale deal.
Yeah, you will struggle. All right, so we've given you enough nuggets for today. Hopefully you picked up something from this, and you'll be able to use it if you're buying over the phone or if you're thinking about going to buy over the phone. But also, I want to remind you, don't forget to hit the like button. Leave us a review. I think we got some reviews. 3
reviews since last week, and we're much needed.
Yeah, so leave us a review. It helps us rank. Helps get the word out about the podcast. And then if you have any questions, you want to reach out to me, you can hit me up at Undrea King on Instagram. And then, of course, don't forget to join our Facebook group at Wholesale Nation.
Don't reach out to me.
Yeah. Andy doesn't like to talk to people. Now, Andy's actually getting ready to do some role playing for the group right now. So if you're in the group, jump on that every Friday. He's doing some free training, helping people get better over the phone.
2 p.m. Central Standard.
There you go.
Go to Wholesale Nation's Facebook group, and you can reach me on Facebook. Facebook is the best way to reach me. Wholesale Nation Facebook group, links there every Friday.
All right, guys. Well, that's a wrap for today. Y'all come back now. You hear?